Welcome back to day 2, Toxic Tuesdays. We're diving into another section, another aspect of lying, and what this actually looks like and what's actually happening inside of the narcissistic abuse that's going on in your life and what's happening from the toxic side as well. So when we deal with narcissistic abuse, you're dealing with someone who is a liar, consistently, habitually, that is lying constantly to many different people in their lives. Now, he might be lying to you, he might be lying to friends and family, he might be lying to coworkers, he's probably lying to everybody to a certain degree. One of the hardest pieces about lying and lying consistently is keeping all of the stories aligned, making sure that they're all straight, making sure they're all figured out, making sure that he doesn't communicate the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. This is what my life was made up of for a long period of time. I was a consistent liar. It was an habitual thing that happened every single day, all of the time. I was not willing to be honest about who I was, about what was happening, and more than anything I ever lied to everyone else, I was unwilling to be honest with myself. This is one of the core problems that we deal with when you're dealing with a narcissist, is he's not willing to be honest with himself. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse, to help you inside of healing and growing, to be able to transform your life from being trapped in a toxic relationship to actually finding freedom. If you want to know more about what I do, you can click on the link below and go to rawmotivations.com. If you haven't already, just hit subscribe, like, rate, or review, and we'll dive in today inside of Toxic Tuesdays. So when we're talking through this piece of Toxic Tuesdays, part of what we're going after is the idea of what is the toxic trait, and then what do we actually do about it? How do you actually heal from it? How do you actually move forward? That's what a lot of the channel is about. But inside of some of the Tuesday content, I'm just sharing some of my story and sharing some of the piece of, hey, if you struggle with this, this is what we're going to talk about. So if you're a guy that struggles with being toxic in the aspect of lying, this video is for you today. One of the aspects of lying for me was early on. It grew early on in the place of what do I need to say, do, or think to be able to communicate stuff to certain people so that I could still get what I want. It was very selfish oriented, and it was very focused on what do I actually want and how do I get it, even if it means I have to lie, cheat, steal, all of these different things. So it became a habit early on. Now, early on, I got labeled as a liar that was an easy catch. Someone that someone could look at and be like, oh, he's lying. Because I have this like smirk. I have this piece where it'd be like, oh, he's lying because he's giving that smirk. He's giving the guilty smile. And at a younger age, I got caught a lot when it came to lying. But what I realized is I could actually manipulate that. I could actually use that to my advantage so that people would think that I was an awful liar, but then when they needed to lie, it would just roll off the tip of my tongue and they wouldn't know the wiser. So this became a habit early on, childhood, high school, college, marriage, where this just continued. And it continued by the time we got to marriage, it was just very much habitual, and it was very much just like a knee-jerk reaction. It wasn't like I was walking through life being like, I'm going to get in trouble for this, so I'm going to lie about this. It was more like, oh, this popped up, lie. Like very, very quick. It was almost like so instinctual because it had been built up as a habit for such a long period of time. So sometimes you'll have moments where it almost feels like the guy in your life doesn't even know that he's lying. Well, that's because he's been used to doing it for such a long period of time. That's how I was. I showed up for a long period of time, not knowing, not seeing, not understanding that I was actually lying to everyone else, but also that I was lying to myself. If a narcissist is not willing to actually look and understand that he's lying to himself, nothing's going to change, nothing's going to transform. So if you're watching this video and you're a guy that's consistently been a liar and you don't get honest with yourself, just understand the outcomes that you're going to have are not going to be what you want. The marriage that you want is going to fail and is going to fall apart. The direction you actually want to go, the direction you actually think, you're like, hey, I want to be able to have a connected family, a vulnerable connection with my wife. All of those things, they will never happen. Why? Because you're a liar. And if you're not willing to be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anyone else. If you're not willing to be honest with yourself, it means your wife actually cannot even love you because she doesn't even know you. She doesn't even know what she's loving. She just thinks she's loving something, but it is a lie because you've been telling a lie for such a long period of time. This piece of lying, if you don't stop it, is going to destroy everything. But if you don't stop lying to yourself, it will not just destroy everything, but then you will feel like it wasn't your fault. The results that you have in your life right here, right now, are 100% your fault. If you do not own them, you will stay a victim. And you're not a victim, you're the person who's actually caused all of the shit to happen. So being able to actually own up and understand that you've been lying to yourself is key here. So if you're a toxic guy and you're a guy that's lied, that's cheated, that's done these things to another woman, I want you to understand that if you do not get honest with yourself, nothing's going to change. And the life that you're living right now, however great or bad it might be, is going to be the one that continues over and over. You're not going to find joy. You're not going to find true happiness. You're not going to find true connection because you're lying to yourself. So inside this piece of lying, I had to start figuring out, how do I actually stop lying? It had been ingrained in me for such a long period of time. I couldn't figure out, how do I actually disconnect from it? Because it was an integral part of me. It was like I was trying to pull parts of me out that just like were part of me. Like I couldn't do it. How do I actually stop this? So I actually had a period of time where I had a whiteboard in my office at that time, and I sat down and I wrote it down. I wrote down my like analytical plan of how I was going to track the lies and find the lies and destroy the lies. And it came to a simple place of, let me go ahead and acknowledge, what are the lies that I have? What are the lies that are inside my life right now? Then it got to a place of trying to identify them within a week. And then it got to a place where not just identifying them, but then I would go back and apologize for them in that week. And then I started to close the gap. Okay, 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, more reviews, more different pieces, trying to catch them within 24 hours, trying to apologize for those lies in 24 hours, trying to catch them in the moment, correct myself in the moment. I'm sorry, that wasn't true. Let me tell you what was actually true. Trying to be able to catch this. And for me, it became this piece of closing a gap until once the gap was completely gone, and then there was just honesty. This piece of honesty is one of the hardest things that you will ever do. If you're a toxic guy that hasn't been honest and you feel unsafe being vulnerable because you don't know how to express your feelings and your emotions, like this piece of you being honest is going to feel like a death. But right now you have to have this death in order to actually grow and develop. You actually have to have this death because this version of you no longer is working. This version of you no longer is serving you because it's not moving you towards who you actually want to be. In fact, it's actually dragging you down into a pit. The pit of shame, a pit of guilt, despair, depression, a pit that is going to leave you stuck, but you're going to gloss over it and tell yourself it's not that bad. That it's not that big of a deal. Because inside of doing this, you'll find different ways to lie to yourself. And when you lie to yourself, you'll get to a place that you think everything's okay, when in reality, everything's falling apart. Working on this process of no longer lying was like going to the gym and building muscle. And over time, I could lift heavier and heavier weights, getting closer and closer to truth. So I had to practice. It wasn't a piece that came naturally. It was a piece that I literally had to like drag myself, kicking and screaming sometimes, to a place of being honest, even though it was painful, even though I hated it, even though I didn't like the aspect of being vulnerable. Like with all the growth, with all the development over the past couple of years, like 5 years of doing like the self-aware piece of like being in therapy for 4 years, all of these different pieces, with all of this has been going on, vulnerability is still uncomfortable. It is still not fun. It is still hard to be able to work through different emotions and feelings. And it affects everything else when I don't. So when I struggle with working through my emotions, my feelings, guess who struggles? My wife. She struggles because then I can't actually show up in a way to help support her emotionally. To be able to help lift her up, to be able to say, hey, I get it. I understand. I'm here for you. I love you. I care about you. I can't do that if I'm not working on my emotions, on my feelings. I can't show up in a positive way because I haven't actually processed it. So then she has an emotional trigger. I get emotionally triggered because I haven't done the work required. And oftentimes when I haven't done the work required, it's because I've been a liar to myself, ignoring the problem, ignoring what's happening, not showing up authentic. And as a result, everything else starts to fall apart. This is why when I had a guy look me in the face and say, if you want to be a man, you have to stop lying. It resonated with me in a different way. And it was God just piercing through this man to be able to say, hey, this is what you need to hear in this moment. You are not a man. You are not a father. You are less than simply because you are a liar. And as a result, God can't even work through you. You have no connection to God. So regardless how much you keep saying you're a Christian or going to church or whatever you might do, you have nothing because you are a liar. Nothing can actually come through a liar. This is when I start realizing that he was talking to me. Because that's who I was. I was putting up a mask. I was acting a certain way. I was showing up inside of church. I was reading my Bible. I was checking all the boxes, but I was still a liar. So there was nothing that actually could transform. So for me, lying had to be a piece that I started to actually work through this process step by step. How do I eradicate the lies one by one and shorten the gap? The gap between knowing and understanding and the gap between action, actually making like a difference, changing what I actually said, being like, wait a second, that's actually wrong. And getting it to a place where I could catch it before it even came out. That's the goal. But sometimes you have to have a plan and a path to be able to schedule it down slowly but surely to get to the place that you show up honest. If you're a guy that's struggling with toxicity and you're struggling with showing up as a liar, maybe you've cheated, maybe you don't know how to be able to express stuff, and you're wondering, why is my marriage and life falling apart? I want to be able to help you today. You can go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to be able to talk to you and help you move forward in the healing process today.